Hey guys, Frank Ray here with the National Real Estate Post. I'm about to hand you off to Brian Stevens, who's done an interview with Martin Andelman, who is one of the inventors of the Implode-O-Meter. For those of you who were with the rest of us who were around in 2008, 2009, you'll remember the Implode-O-Meter. Well, one of the inventors was Martin Andelman. He's on the show today, and he's going to be talking about reverse mortgages, which is kind of a random thing to talk about here, but he is just one of the most brilliant guys when it comes to the reverse mortgage on how to take full advantage of it. And he's got thoughts on how that helps right now. So, you know, you're quarantined to your home. Take the time to hear this interview in its entirety and check it out. I think you'd be really surprised at how informative it really is. And with that in mind, you may want to start looking into the reverse space, in which case Liberty Reverse Mortgage has a webinar on the 23rd on how to work within the reverse space remotely. So it all kind of ties together well. The banner to register for the webinar is on the screen here, of course. It's right down below you. You can click on that banner to register, or it's over on your right. You can click on it to register there. But stay tuned for this really cool interview with Martin Andelman, one of the inventors of the Implode-O-Meter. And here we go.
Hey guys, Brian Stevens here with the National Real Estate Post. Today I have a really great guest. It's Martin Andelman. Now, he's the writer and the owner of the site, Mandelman Matters. And you guys might remember back in 2008, the Implode-O-Meter. Well, you're looking at the person who put the Implode-O-Meter together, and we're certainly going to talk about how this market stacks up against 2008. But first of all, how you doing, Martin?
Good, very good. Good.
Awesome. Hey, listen, I want to jump right into this. We had a conversation a couple of days ago, and we were talking about reverse mortgages as they pertain to this whole COVID-19 thing. And we were speculating as if more people had reverse mortgages, why it would be an advantage. So kind of taking a broad range on this thing, talk to us about reverse mortgages and what would be the benefits of markets like this, and why more seniors should consider them.
Well, my God, you know, and I've been saying this now for 2 or 3 years. I've been going around the country and talking to people about it. Imagine if a reverse mortgage, first of all, let's understand, it's just a mortgage. It's not anything tricky. It's an FHA mortgage. Now, you have a choice with this mortgage because you're over 62. You can choose to make principal and interest payments. You can choose to make interest-only payments, or you can choose to make no payments. So like what I point out to people all the time, if you had a HECM mortgage and you wanted it to go forward, you would just make principal and interest payments. Then it's a forward mortgage. If you make interest-only payments, then I say it's in neutral. And if you don't make the payments, well, then the interest is added to the balance, and that's what they call going in reverse. But nobody calls and nobody cares. So the reason I always tell people, after you're 62, if you still have a mortgage balance, switch it to the HECM. HECM, it's the Home Equity Conversion Mortgage, which is the government's acronym for the government's reverse mortgage program. There's nothing wrong with it. It's an FHA loan, just like every FHA mortgage that's ever been originated. The difference is because you're over 62, you can choose how to pay it. That's all. There's nothing tricky about it.
Well, I love the fact that you say it's a forward mortgage. Like every standard mortgage that people are looking at are essentially a forward mortgage, but they're kind of pigeonholed into only being a forward mortgage. It's really kind of a pick-up payment. It's a pick-up payment. If you're going to look at a reverse mortgage, don't think of it as something that's going to suck away your equity. No, I mean, you don't have to make a payment on it, but it's simply a pick-up plan, right? It's pick a payment.
That's right. The biggest single problem with reverse mortgages in this country is that they have always been marketed or advertised as being something for people who are strapped for cash. I mean, if you turn on the TV today, that's all you'll see, an ad every 15 minutes that says, if you're strapped for cash, call the number on your screen and hawk your house. I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like, look, if you're sitting in the dark and eating cat food, call us and hawk your house. I mean, they make it sound like one step over food stamps. It's nothing like that. First of all, to get a reverse mortgage today, a HECM mortgage, you have to have about 50% equity. So that's not poor people. I mean, they paid off half their house, right? Yeah. But if you can switch that mortgage over to a HECM, all that means is that you never have to worry about it again. There's no due date. So you could decide to make a payment once a month on whatever day you wanted. You could decide to make a payment every 3 months. You could make a payment annually. You could make a payment every 3 years. I mean, it's up to you. right? Or you could make payments every 2 weeks. It's totally up to you, and no one calls and no one cares. So because there's no due date, it also means you can never be late, for example. So, you know, I always talk to, you know, look, I'm now about to be 59 years old this year. I'm getting close to the 62 line. And one thing I can tell you is after you hit, I don't know, maybe it's 55, but what I've noticed is stuff happens that it's harder to recover from. I mean, it's just that simple. If you're 45 and you lose your job, you probably just go get another one. If you need extra money, maybe you work a second job, maybe you do more, you take on more. But once you're a little older and something goes wrong, it's not that easy to correct. So if you have the type of mortgage that allows you to skip payments whenever you want to, isn't that just safer? I mean, it's just safer. It's like my mortgage, I don't have to worry about. It's just safer. Now, if you don't make the payments, if you never make a payment, right, which is that's the kind of people they mostly sell to because that's what they're advertising for. I mean, look, if I run an ad in a laundromat, chances are I'm going to get people that don't own washers and dryers. Right? I'm advertising in a laundromat, right? Well, if you run ads on TV that say, if you're strapped for cash, call the number on your screen, then the people that are going to call are the people that are strapped for cash.
And it really paints the reverse mortgage in a bad light.
Right.
Because when you say, hey, when somebody's cash strapped, the assumption really comes down to is that you're in a very vulnerable position and there are going to be vultures who are taking advantage of you. So it kind of paints the heck of in a bad light, I think, when you position it in only that way. But you even talk about, well, a couple of things I want to get to real quickly is you said, well, it's kind of like a glorified HELOC. Can you explain that? You can actually make your payments and then ask for that money back.
Yeah, that's right. The line of credit on the HECM is unlike anything else in the country. First of all, it can never be canceled. You might remember in 2008, I know you do, banks canceling HELOCs left and right? Okay. They can be unilaterally canceled at any time. I mean, a HELOC, a home equity line of credit is a great thing to have. It's just a crummy thing to use. I mean, having one is no problem, right? You don't use it, it just sits there, big deal. But when you use a HELOC, the problems start, okay? First of all, the bank can cut your credit line at any time.
Which I'm sure they're doing right now.
I'm sure they are. And if they haven't,
they're gonna. Right.
Any minute, right? So that can't happen with a HECM line of credit. It can never be canceled for your whole lifetime, no matter what. Second of all, the HECM line of credit goes up, is guaranteed to go up every year by whatever the interest rate is plus half a point. So if your interest rate's 4.5, it's going up by 5% a year, right? So this year, if your credit line was 100,000, next year it's 105,000. Then it's 110,500. It keeps compounding and growing, right? And it grows irrespective of the home value. The home could go down, the line of credit still goes up, no matter what, right? So now you have this revolving line of credit. So let's just say that you decided to switch your mortgage over to a HECM and then make your payments all year. I've done these for people where we did a 15-year amortization. They said they wanted to pay off their house in 15 years. So we did an amortization schedule, and they made their payments all year, $2,000 a month, principal and interest all year long. At the end of the year, let's just say something came up. The roof blew off the house. Something happened. Well, you can just pick up the phone, call your servicer, and say, hey, send me that 24 grand back. And they will, like that. No questions asked. I mean, try doing that with Bank of America. I just made my mortgage payment all year long, not to pick on B of A, but just I made my mortgage payment all year long, and I need the 24 grand back at the end of the year. They're not going to give it to you. With a HECM, they will. It goes right back into every single dime that you pay into a HECM goes right onto your line of credit, dollar for dollar. So if you put 100 grand into your loan, your line of credit just went up by 100 grand. And you can access it anytime you want. I mean, nothing else will do that. There's nothing else that will do that.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. If everyone, somebody's going to get a purchase, their forward purchase, maybe some conforming loan, and then they're going to put a HELOC on the back of that, which is pretty common to do because they don't really cost a whole bunch of money. But it's really interesting that that is going to there's a high probability that that's going to be frozen. If they were to just went into that purchase with a HECM purchase and continued making their payments. Can you imagine, like you said, well, if your roof blows off, or maybe we have a global pandemic and everybody's unemployed the next day. Imagine if you had a HECM last year and you put 24,000 into this thing. And you're saying, well, hold on a second, I'm going to be underemployed for the foreseeable future. I want that money back. and your mortgage servicer is going to give you that $24,000 back, and you don't have to make the payment. You could ride these waves. It seems like when you look at it, Heckham, in this light, it's just a safer and more responsible approach for somebody who's a senior and might find themselves underemployed. You know, we've all seen the bell curve of your earning years, and when you start to get into your 50s and 60s, the bell curve starts to go on the downside of the slope, and you're not going. You know, your earning potential, your bandwidth is between the ages of like 35 to 45 is your peak earning bandwidth. You know, and then you're going to start to go on the downslide, right?
Right, maybe to 55. But I mean, do you remember when you got your first mortgage?
Yeah.
I remember my first mortgage really well because the payment, well, first of all, the interest rate was 12%, and I was for some reason was happy with that. And the payment was 26.66.77. Okay. And I was used to paying rent of about $900 a month at the time. And now I was signing papers saying I'm going to pay $2,700 a month for the next 30 years. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, can I do this? I mean, I think I can do this. I don't know. I mean, what if I'm out of work, right? Now, what if someone had said to you back then, look, you have two choices on the type of mortgage that we could give you. Choice A, you're going to have to make a payment every month on the 1st. If you don't make it by the 10th, there's a late fee. If you don't make it for the month, your credit score goes down. And if you don't make it for a few months, you can find yourself in foreclosure. That's choice A. Choice B, you make payments whenever you want to, you skip payments whenever you want to, and nobody calls and nobody cares. Which type would you like?
Right, right. Absolutely.
Who would ever choose? That's why I've said it. I go, look, I think if the Heckham, the government's reverse mortgage program, if the Heckham were available to 35-year-olds, it would be the only mortgage in the country. We'd never do a Fannie or Freddie loan. Who would ever do one? Why would I do one that requires me to make a payment every month on the 1st, and I get in trouble if I don't make it, when I could choose one where I could make payments whenever I want to and skip them whenever I want to? Nobody would ever do it. No, I'm telling you, if I really believe this, if reverse mortgages today, the government's, I'm not talking about reverse mortgages 30 years ago. I don't know anything about reverse mortgage. I don't know how it got this bad, right? But I would say this, if the government if this thing was called a retirement mortgage, I think there'd be a line of people from here to Disneyland looking to get them. But they hear reverse mortgage, they go, oh my God, people have said it to me 100 times. Oh, I'd never do one of those. I always ask, why? Why? I mean, what am I missing here? And with every single time, it's like, well, then the bank will own my house. No, the bank's not going to own your house. I don't know where this rumor got started. It's no different than another FHA mortgage.
Right.
Everybody likes FHA mortgages, but they don't like Heckham mortgages.
Right.
The same thing.
Now, let's talk about this. You have somebody who's over the age of 62. They've got the reserves in the bank. They could go ahead and get any type of mortgage they chose to. They're well-to-do. They've got their 401k, whatever it is, and they come to you and say, well, they want to purchase a house. And you're going to say, well, I want you to consider a reverse mortgage. They're going to say no. And then you're going to tell them why. What would the reasons be for somebody who is well off, who is not cash strapped? What would be the benefits for them getting a reverse mortgage?
Okay, so, well, first let me say this. If somebody has so much money that it is impossible to imagine that they could ever spend that amount, I don't know, they have $5 million liquid or something. They could never go through this money in a million years, right? Well, then, I don't know, Oprah, Bill Gates, there's not very many of these people, but I don't care about them at all. They're on their own. All right. Now let's talk about the rest of the country, right? I mean, 99% or whatever of the people, right? First of all, retirement today is measured in decades, not years, right? It's not a years thing. It's like, well, you're 65, you could go to 95. You got 30 years to do this, right? And nobody knows what's going to happen over 30 years. Nobody, right? And nobody's prepared for retirement because when the rules for preparing for retirement were written in the 80s, I don't remember spending $1,000 a month on a cell phone and a cable and an internet bill. I don't remember my health insurance costing $2,500 a month. I don't remember any of this stuff, right? So now looking forward, and look at what we're looking at now. Did anyone see this coming? Right. I mean, stock market bubbles are one thing, but now we are looking at a global pandemic. I mean, I've always said, look, if everything's going to go perfectly for the next 30 years, you don't need to do anything. I mean, you're fine. Why worry about a thing, right? Everything's going to go swimmingly, but it never does.
Right.
And when do you find out that the stock market has crashed?
the day after.
After it's crashed, right? You don't know whether it's going to crash. We're not Warren Buffett over here. We're hometown Buffett. We don't know. We know nothing. We know nothing. Ask anybody questions about the stock market. They have no idea what they're doing. So you find out after it already crashed. And you know how you find out? Because your financial advisor calls you and says, don't sell. Now would be not a good time to sell. Well, now's when I need the money. I mean, where am I going to get that? Well, it's too late. Now it's already down. You don't want to sell now, right? This is the kind of moment that no one saw coming. But if you had that line of credit right now that you could tap whenever you needed to and never have to make a payment on it, I mean, the HELOC, think about that. You borrow from a HELOC and right away you start making monthly payments of interest only, right away. And then at the end of 10 years, what happens? If you don't refinance it, it fully amortizes and for 20 years. And your payments can go from $500 a month interest only to $1,500 a month principal and interest. And now you're 10 years older. So if you were 65 when you got the HELOC, now you're 75 and your payments just went up dramatically. And you can't refinance because you don't have the income. Now you're 75 years old, and God forbid you need something like in-home care or anything else where you have a monthly bill of $5,000 a month. I mean, we don't know what's coming. It's just safer if you have them. And by the way, and if everything goes right, then don't borrow the money.
Right.
And then you don't have to pay it back. And then you can laugh about how over-prepared you were. Ha, 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 ha. I was over-prepared. Good for you. But we're looking at it again. I was hoping we wouldn't see this again in my lifetime, but you and I have talked about this now a couple of days ago. People are comparing this to 2008. It's scaring the bejesus out of me. I mean, it looks bad to me. You know, if with a HECM, you're protected. Your line of credit's going to go up every year, even if your house is going down.
You know, and I think it's great what you said is, you know, again, if you're going to have a HELOC, that's going to have an expiration date on it. That's going to get amortized over 20 years when you're 75 years old, which is a really interesting point. Your HECM, nobody's ever going to ask you for a dime on this thing, ever. They're ever going to ask you for a dime. And I don't want this to be glossed over. You know, if you consider somebody who is, you know, the stock market is down 20%. We now know we're underemployed or unemployed as we're, you know, quarantined right now. Well, for a lot of people, as we sit here today, they're pulling money out of the stock market when the stocks have taken a beating and haven't had a chance to recover. I hope everybody really understands that, where if they had a HECM mortgage, they could just ask for that principal and interest money back, and they can leave their money in the stock market and allow that to rebound. You know, because if you're pulling your money out when the stock market is down, it's not going to recover. But if you had a HECM, it acts as an insurance policy against what your other investments are. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. See, that's what people don't stop to think about enough. But, you know, I've always said that it's not the stock market that cycles, it's us, right? When the stock market is up, and we're all hearing how up it is, that's when billions of dollars flood into mutual funds. When do they come out? When the stock market crashes, because when the stock market crashes, the economy isn't doing well, and that's when we need the money. So we actually buy high and sell low every single time.
Right.
The money pours into mutual funds when the market's at a peak, because we don't want to be left out, and then it comes pouring out of those same mutual funds when the market crashes at the bottom, because that's when we need the money.
Well, and if you really want to just kind of, you know, get out on the edge of the diving board on this thing, you know, with the stock market down 25% right now, somebody could say, well, hold on a second, all this money that I've been applying for the, you know, towards my HECM purchase, I could actually, or my HECM, I could actually pull that money, throw it in the stock market and realize the gain when it bounces back, and then throw that money back over. I mean, I'm not saying you should,
could,
but it's on the table.
That's right. You could do whatever you have the risk tolerance for. I mean, I personally don't think people should gamble with home equity money at all. I mean, I think that it's there to insulate you. But you cannot count. Look, it's just what you're going to see. What you saw in 2008, you're going to see it again. You can't count on whatever your 401k balance is as being your 401k balance. I mean, it's like when the old joke, when is $1 million not $1 million? And you know, the answer is when it's in a 401k plan. That's when, because your balance is $1 million, but of course you just found out, you know, yesterday that the market dove 25%, and now your balance is $750, and then you got to pay taxes on it when you take it out. So what is that? Is it really so $1 million might be closer to $400,000 or $500,000. right?
Right.
And then you know the strategy. Once the market crashes, you have a good strategy for your 401k plan. People just stop opening the mail. I don't want to look at it, and therefore it's not really happening.
Hey, listen, this is such great information. You know, me and you, we're both huge fans of, you know, reverse mortgages, the Heckam purchases even. Listen, if you guys want to follow Martin, he's got one of the craziest kaleidoscope brains that just goes all over the place. And I always learn something when I have a conversation with him. You need to check out Mandelman Matters. The link is down below here. And just one last point, Implode-O-Meter, are you bringing it back?
Yeah, I think so. I'm talking to, you know, Aaron Crown really invented the Implode-O-Meter. I joined on with him early, and, you know, he's an amazing guy. He's gone to law school now, so I don't know how much time he's going to have to put into it. But, yep, we're going to talk to him again. I saw that first bank go under in, what was it, West Virginia, FDIC insured bank, and I went, oh, God, here we go. I mean, you know, is this going to, are they going to let this spread like a, you know, like a forest fire? I certainly hope not.
Anybody who says they have the answers right now are lying through their teeth. We just don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of months. And you know, when you look at some of these margin calls that banks have had to deal with, when you look at what's going on with servicing right now, when you look at what's going on with buybacks and potential foreclosures, we don't know how deep this goes. I know in Los Angeles that the quarantine is now going through the 15th of May. I can't even imagine that. But it's probably going to be the same for the better part of the rest of the country. A month and a half with no activity. I fear to even speculate what the United States economy and the global economy is going to look once we can peek outside of our houses again.
Well, I know. And look, they're telling everybody to call and get a forbearance and not make your mortgage payment. And, you know, if you can make your mortgage payment, make it. Stay current. Call your bank while you're current if you need them to restructure something. One thing that you and I, we all learned, everybody in this industry should have learned last time around. You do not want to end up 6 months behind in a line of people, all 6 months behind, asking for a loan modification come next spring. That promises to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And we don't have the big bank servicers like we used to, you know, to deal with. I always used to joke with people when they were complaining about Bank of America. I'd go, look, when they're gone, you're going to miss them. I mean, as bad as they are, they're a lot easier to deal with than a brand X no-name servicer who has no brand reputation to be concerned with to begin with.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And there's going to be a lot more on these forbearances to come, but that is universal across the board. Everybody agrees on it. Listen, it's going to have ripple effects on your credit, on your ability to secure you know, any type of loans going forward, any type of modifications. It's going to have a huge impact if we do these forbearances. There's a lot that's not being talked about, and that's a real disservice to people who own homes. But hey, Martin, listen, thank you so much for today. And again, check out Mandelman Matters. It's right down below. With that said, we'll catch you tomorrow on the National Real Estate Post.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, let me just.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I love the quote, you know, you're not Warren Buffett, you're hometown Buffett. Awesome stuff by Martin Andelman and Brian Stevens. Look, don't forget about that webinar coming up on reverse mortgages. Click the banner you see right here, the Liberty Home Equity. I'm sorry, the Liberty Reverse Mortgage banner you see here. They did a recent name change. Again, it's right down below, or there's a link around here on Facebook, or the banner's on your right. And we'll catch you guys later here at the National Real Estate Post. Adios.